Good late afternoon. Welcome to the Oxnard City Council Housing and Economic Development Committee. This is a regularly scheduled meeting. The date is November 12th, 2019, and I'm not the chair of this committee, but the chair has been delayed, and so I'm the vice chair. And when the chair shows up, he'll start running the meeting. Madam City Clerk, the roll, please.
Member Flynn.
Here.
Member Lopez.
Here.
And Chair Madrigal is on his way. And we have a quorum. The agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, November 5th.
Thank you very much. And now we'll stand up for the flag salute, please. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So item B on the agenda, it doesn't appear, Madam City Clerk, that we have any public comment cards on items not on the agenda. And we'll go right to item C, which is the consent agenda, and that's the approval of the minutes. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That passes. Now we'll go to item D, 1, Community Development Department, Downtown Improvement Program Settlement Funds, Priority Funding Recommendations. Recommendation is that the Housing and Economic Development Committee, number 1, provide comments to the recommendations for the use of Downtown Improvement Program Settlement Funds to benefit the revitalization of downtown Oxnard, and recommend the proposed plan be forwarded to the full City Council for adoption. Number 2, recommend the City Council approve a budget appropriation in the amount of $540,000 from the fund balance of the City Downtown Improvement Fund. And Mr. Lambert will be giving the presentation. Mr. Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also joined by Rosie Ornelas, our Economic Development Manager, sitting in the front row. We both together work on helping revitalize downtown, and I see tonight's agenda item as part of that overall strategy. So a little bit of history so the council knows, I think you do already, but just to remind the council and the public, that in April of 2015, there was a settlement agreement reached that was finalized between the city and the developers of Centennial Plaza. That settlement fund was created and called the Downtown Improvement Program Settlement Funds. And at the time of that agreement, it had an amount of $6.15 million. The current balance of that fund is approximately $4.45 million. And I can talk, if the council has questions, about how we got from 6.1 to 4.4 through the question and answers. I wanted to just sort of frame what we were trying to accomplish. So as the council knows, we've been working really hard to help revitalize downtown. We have sort of a multi-pronged strategy. That strategy includes addressing the issues of homelessness and the impact that's having on the downtown community, seeking opportunities for private investment, most notably recently the Madison Park exclusive negotiation agreement, but also looking for other opportunities for private investment in the downtown, also creating a clean and safe environment, and also creating a vibrant downtown environment. So it's really sort of a multi-pronged approach to trying to see downtown revitalized. The funding recommendations tonight are all intended to move that agenda forward. And I think it's fair to say, rather than thinking about spending this money on physical improvements that might like improve streets and sidewalks and facades, those kinds of things, we thought it was important in this next 3-year period to focus instead on making downtown safe and clean, so it's a place where private investment wants to invest in downtown, and then let that private investment make a lot of those physical improvements that we think downtown is desperately looking for. So that's sort of the theme of the recommendations before you tonight. I'll go through them one by one to walk you through the main components of that. The first is homeless outreach. And as I think the council knows, we are looking at a citywide homeless sort of outreach team effort. The purpose of this agenda item and recommendation is to actually, in addition to 2 homeless outreach people citywide, that we would actually have 2 that are just focused on downtown. So we'd really bring some direct attention to the outreach program and efforts that we have in our downtown by that. It's about an annual cost of about $100,000. We're recommending today that we put $50,000 in the current fiscal year because we're halfway through the year, and then put $100,000 in the next 2 fiscal years. So this program is funded, and this is just to fund those 2 outreach workers for the downtown area. The second is property management and maintenance. And this is really two things right now, but I want to talk about maybe some future things we'd like to think about. The first is the laundromat building on 5th Street. You will all probably know that building as a real problem for us in the downtown. We have regular activity there, fires, calls for service for police and fire, and it's really become a problem for us. We haven't found a better solution than to just demolish the building, and so the recommendation is to do that. It does sound like a lot of money, $195,000 to demolish a small building like that, but we believe there's a lot of hazardous materials, and a lot of that funding is to actually pay for the removal of the hazard materials and properly dispose of it. We do also want to be careful that we don't demolish the building and create another nuisance of a vacant lot in downtown that also is a nuisance. So before we would demolish the building, our plan is to develop a plan to revitalize, to reuse that space in its vacant building capacity, vacant lot capacity. And we're looking at either some sort of art program and bringing kids in to help create an art project for that site, or there's somebody in town called Henry Shea who's been looking at a sort of a container entertainment center, and he's also very interested in that site. So if we do clear the site, that's a site that he might be interested in leasing from the city. So we're looking at that as well. I would assure the council that we wouldn't demolish the building until we had a plan to how to use that property, so we don't create another nuisance. Also in downtown, it's a parking structure. And we did spend a lot of time at staff trying to figure out what's the solution to make that parking structure more inviting. And there are lots of things we could do. But we thought right now the first step would be to add improved lighting in that parking structure. We've made a bunch of other improvements lately, but really trying to enhance the lighting would be the first step. We did consider adding cameras, but because we're looking at a citywide camera system, we thought let's add the lighting today and maybe come back with a camera project in the future once we have the right system in place. So that's $65,000 to upgrade the lighting in the structure. The next one is public safety, and we really looked hard at a couple options here, and I'll talk about one that we decided not to recommend yet, but this one is really adding additional police resources to downtown. As you know, we've had in the past a larger group of police officers dedicated to downtown that's dwindled quite a bit over the last several years, and in talking to the police department, we agreed that having an extra 40 hours of police time delivered to the city in downtown through overtime would be the way to make that happen and make a difference in that environment quickly, as opposed to hiring additional officers and the time it takes to do that. That we would recommend here that we add $200,000 in each of the next 3 years to add additional overtime so we can have officers dedicated to downtown going forward. We think that's the most immediate way to make a real difference in the downtown from a safety perspective. We also, as the council knows, have had staff involved and funded by the funding source over the last couple of years. You might have recalled that we had at one time a downtown revitalization manager fully funded by their settlement funds. That position is no longer with the city, but what we've done is we've dedicated a percentage of several city staff at the same value we had before to make sure we have multiple staff focused on downtown. And as you probably know, I spend a lot of time in downtown, so a small percentage of my salary is covered there. Also, Rosie's work in downtown is a lot of her work, so part of her time is scheduled there. And then we have 2 additional staff. We have an admin person, admin secretary, working in downtown. We also have a project manager that's currently vacant. And our plan would be to spread the $147,000 we have in the current budget across those ultimately 4 positions. So there's not a budget impact, but we have 4 people dedicated at least part of their time towards that work. We also, as the council knows, have hired New City America. Under this year's budget, we're recommending in this report to you tonight that we extend their work for a 3-year period at a total of about $90,000 per year. They're really, as you'll hear in a week or so, they're a national expert in revitalizing downtowns with some really solid experience in Little Italy and other parts of the country. And we think that they're really helpful in strategizing the best way to get the bang for our buck in downtown and to help the downtown management district also improve its ability to serve the downtown area. So that's also included in the staff and consulting recommendations tonight. We did have a few other things we considered. They're not recommended to you tonight, but we think there's something that we should come back to if the council's interested in them. One is downtown ambassadors. So this is something that I know Rosie and I are experienced with in Ventura. These are they call them the red shirts in Ventura. These are organized and supervised by the PBID, the Downtown Business Group in Ventura. They basically act as ambassadors in all the public places. So they know the rules, they know how people should behave, they hold people accountable to operate in a way that maintains the quality of life for downtown. They're also a direct conduit to the police department, so they're a really good addition. I don't think we thought at this moment in time we're ready for that. Plus, creating a whole new group will take time, and we won't see that bang for the buck that we think we need. So we're not recommending that tonight, but it is something, as downtown continues to evolve, that we would like to come back to the council and with a recommendation in the future. We also know that we could always do better maintenance in downtown. One of the things is the parking structure, but also trash cans and also tree trimming. We thought rather than make that recommendation to you today, we're working with the ODMD to update our baseline services so that we know what the city is providing, what the ODMD is providing. We haven't updated that in a very long time, and the world has changed in the city's budget and our ability to provide those services. So our hope is to update that baseline study and perhaps come back to the council with a thoughtful recommendation on how we can do additional maintenance in downtown. It's just not before you tonight. And then lastly, we are in the process of several transactions, real estate transactions to sell property. It costs money to sell property, paying for appraisals and those kinds of expenses. We're not asking for that tonight. We don't think it's a significant amount of money. And if we are able to come back to you with a recommendation for that, it would be money that once those transactions completed, it would be replenished in the fund. But that's something we might think about coming back to you in 2020. So all included in that, and I hope you followed the bouncing balls in the report, because there's a lot of things that are partially funded in the budget already that we're augmenting as part of the recommendations tonight. But one-time money of $260,000 in the year 2020, annual $280,000, and then for a total of $540 that we're asking for in this current fiscal year. And then in the next 2 years, about $537,000 for the next 2 years, for a total $1.6 million out of the fund. That's currently at a balance of 4.4. So that's the recommendation before the committee. Our recommendation is that you receive our recommendations, provide us feedback, and then make a recommendation to the full city council on these funding priorities for the downtown settlement funds, so that we can get this money to work in our downtown. And that completes my presentation.
Thank you so much. We have a speaker, Abel Magana.
Good evening, Chair Madrigal, council members. My name is Abel Magana. I'm the executive director for the Oxnard Downtown Management District, and so a full partner with the city in keeping it clean and safe. So I was really glad to hear those words as the top priority here reflected in the recommendations before you. I did want to say that actually too that I very much appreciated staff's work in compiling this list, getting it, narrowing it down to these key priorities. It's always difficult trying to get more than a couple of people to agree on what to have for lunch, or whatever, much less to agree on how we can best spend the balance of this fund. So we were extended the courtesy and as partners to opine on some of the desires that the downtown merchants want, and yes, a lot of them, we had a laundry list. We just threw it out there. If you don't ask, you don't get. So a number of things that it did include a lot of other capital improvements, but I'm also happy to say that confident that down the line we'll have those opportunities for those things to come to fruition just through the activities that we're realizing right now in terms of new development, new investment that's coming in. I think as you improve the environment out there, that's our goal, always keep it clean and safe, but also do some things with art is huge catalyst too, and not the most costly thing that you can do, but it definitely does create a vibe and an energy and momentum that makes things better, that feeds off it. And then the new projects that are coming in too, and conditioning some of those developers to do those capital improvements out there in the district. But I cannot underestimate, I do want to emphasize the importance of keeping it clean and safe today. Even as a director, I interface on a daily basis with the homeless population. It's a different population out there today. It's a vagrants. There's a lot of vagrancy, a a lot of transients that are a more aggressive breed. I actually today, for the very first time, actually had somebody physically threaten me where I had to physically run back to my office actually to be able to. So cannot, again, underestimate the importance of having uniformed officers there, sworn police officers out there. Our PSC team, that's great, but there's a point to where there's no substitute for the authority that comes with the badge and a sworn trained police officer. So I fully endorse this. I think my board would also agree. As Jeff put it in the staff report too, we didn't take a formal action, but there was generally consensus, and we've been talking about this for a long time. This is just the first step towards revitalization, and we do appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers on this item? Okay, with that, go ahead, Mayor Flynn.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad that we're targeting this money to what is by all means the most important priorities downtown. And my concern is, however, that with the balance of the funds that remain, that we were supposed to years and years and years ago come up with kind of a priority list about how those funds should be spent, because it's so easy for those just to disappear. And we see that the funding of the overtime with the police department ongoing for 3 years, $200,000 a year. That should be normally, and again, some might say, why did you have to say that? But it should be financed by the general fund. And I'm just kind of concerned that the vagrancy issue, that it's, whether it's the demolition of the building, the one-time cost, the ongoing cost, the lighting, the one-time lighting, the ongoing police presence, which I have always advocated, an expanded police presence, that we're spending the money without maybe even looking at the 50,000-foot level. And if we looked at the 50,000-foot level, these are like immediate needs, and I understand that. But I think we need to get to that. I want to implore the chairman of the committee and Member Lopez to that we actually ask that come back, and we take a look at that for the future, because quite frankly, I see that money disappearing in the next 3 years. And if somebody were to ask, what happened to that money? Somebody might say, well, we need an increased police presence, we needed this, we needed that, and I'm sorry, but it's gone. The purpose of the settlements, in particular, were to offset the fact that River Park was opening the collection, a theater. And that's the primary reason those settlement funds were delivered. And so, although dealing with the homeless issue, dealing with vagrancy and things of this nature are a top priority, I'm just concerned that we're not spending the money the way it was intended to be spent, number one. And number two, when you don't have a plan, this is a plan, but when there's not a 50,000-foot level plan, I think the money will just disappear.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. Kind of following on those comments, I think this is great to have such a focus on the safety and just improving in these ways downtown. But my concern is definitely like if we're putting in or identifying these expenses, how are we going to keep those after those years, or after the 3 years or the 2 years? So if
Yeah, I think the way we thought about this when we were crafting the recommendations is we spent money to create the downtown zoning code. That's already reaping benefits with at least 3 active projects. One that's been filed, one that we expect to be filed in the next couple of weeks, and one that we're working on with Madison. you could argue there's 5 projects and Madison has 3. So that money spent is reaping the return on the investment with development. That new development is going to bring additional revenue to downtown. So it's a long-term play. Our thought with this recommendation is if we can continue to show downtown as a safe and clean place for others to invest, then we'll see additional investment, which is also a long-term play. So we thought, yes, it's a lot of money and it's not for something physical, but we think if we can do that job right, that physical improvement that we want downtown will come from the private investment in our downtown and the additional revenue that will bring to both the city and the PBID to do additional things downtown. So that was the long play perspective we were looking at when we formulated these recommendations.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful, and it's true that as the conditions change, we hope that they do remain long-term, have a long-term impact. So thank you for that. And then the other point, so what the ask now is for the next 3 years would be the 1.6 million or so, and then there would be about 2.5-ish million left. And so at what point would we revisit what happens with the rest of that?
I expect, since we have a couple things we've thought about, but we didn't bring to tonight, like additional maintenance and the ambassador program, we'd probably come back to you sometime in 2020 to revisit the next round of recommendations. And hopefully, as conditions change, some of those will also change as well, but that we'd come back a year or so from now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. I guess piggybacking on the last 2 statements from Councilmember Lopez and the mayor. I remember my 3rd meeting, actually, so December of 2016. We had a workshop talking about downtown. We had 14 different things, and I think, honestly, out of those 14 things, 2 of them actually got done. And, that was supposed to be our end-all meeting of the downtown. And honestly, looking back at it, there was more questions after the meeting than going into the meeting. So I agree with the mayor. We do need to have that, big picture view. These are all great, but when they're gone, when the money's gone, what are we going to get out of it? And obviously, at the time, it's going to be like, okay, great, it was needed. 2 years after, everyone's going to be complaining it was a giant waste of money. I think we may have to go for a second round. I'll give you guys a chance to speak again. But just this weekend alone, on social media, do you feel safe inviting your friends and family to the downtown? And it was predominantly no. It was about 80% no, that they would not invite their friends or bring their family to our downtown. And this is all Oxnard residents. It's not, people from the outside or neighboring cities for a variety of different reasons. But we do need to look at that view because $2.8 million is not going to give us a return. Yes, all these things are needed. Yes, the parking structure across the street is a mess. It's not necessarily the safest place, and realistically, it's hard finding parking there when actually needed, and it's hardly ever used. But anytime, most of the parking spaces are taken up by city vehicles. If you're there at night, I wouldn't park there, and I'd rather walk an extra 2 blocks than park in the parking structure at night. It has a beautiful view on the 4th floor that, on the 4th floor, which is soon going to be gone because, obviously there's hopefully going to be new apartments, but that view that you could see most of the sides of Oxnard is going to be gone. So, what's going to happen to that 4th floor that is never really used for parking on the parking structure? We have, I know that, we can't please everybody. And I do know that, hopefully this money would never be ending, but, once it's gone, it's gone. And at the end of the day, what is it that we're getting out of it? Yes, the laundromat does need to go down. It's an eyesore, and I think the city is wasting more money from it standing than anything else. But, this is something that probably should have been done a long time ago. It hasn't necessarily been the best planning over the last years, and I know it's easy to say that, you know, we have been in a state of flux from a management perspective. But up on the dais, 5 of the 7 of us have been here for all that time. So yes, upper management has changed, but as a council, it's been steady, and the progress I don't even think it's gone forward. I think it's even gone a little bit back. So, you know, it's something that we need to look at, because yes, these are needed, but what is the long-term plan? We're looking at this as very poorly managed, and eventually the money's going to be gone, and we're all going to say, oh, whoops, and it's gone. And hopefully, yes, new light will be brought into by the new housing, so on and so forth. But what about the people that have been here for a while? They're going to say, oh, the city messed it up again. And it's the same story time after time. We have business owners in the downtown who refuse to even be a part of anything involving the downtown, simply because, you know, it might be something small that, yeah, you know, the city trash truck hit their building in 1986 and the city never repaired it. But stuff like that keeps happening over and over again. And as a council and as, well, obviously management, we need to be responsible for the $6 million. Many things could be done from it, but at the end of the day, we have, you know, little to show at the time. If anybody else wants to say anything.
Thank you very much, Chair Madrigal, and also Committee Member Lopez. One of the things I do like, and I should, because I want to end on a real positive note, is that I like the thought that if or when we knock down the laundromat, that exactly what you talked about comes about as a result of that. And I think that really kind of maybe carries the theme that, okay, this money's being spent. On the one hand, we're eradicating one problem, which is really bad, and it has really affected that whole area, and I hear about it all the time from the merchants. And yet, on the other hand, something new has come about as a direct result of that action. So that's, you know, what I think too, when we get this brought back to us, it's about the 50,000-foot level and what we actually envision coming out of it. What at the end of the day, when we spend this money, we could actually say that these downtown settlement funds actually were perhaps, in addition to, I think, the creativity of Mr. Lambert and his staff and our staff and our city manager, that the settlement funds had a direct long-term effect on the downtown. And I know we're in dire straits, or we're in very tough circumstances downtown with the challenges that we're meeting. But I mean, to hear that there's going to be more of a police presence for me is really satisfying and gratifying, because it's unfortunately, Chair Madrigal and Committee Member Lopez, it's going to lead to a lot more arrests. And a lot of people would say, great, we're going to have a lot more arrests. Those individuals, whether they're substance abusers or mentally ill, they go right down to county jail. They get checked in. They get fingerprinted, photographed, and within a couple of days, they're right back at their mischief and the vagrancy element of this. So I think this also, as our committee, I really think that I want to say to the committee members, because at the core of a lot of the spending is the homeless problem, that we need to come up with additional solutions. We need to help our city manager. We need to provide leadership and guidance when it comes to the fact that we have 700 homeless in this city, and right now we're housing approximately 100. We're going to have a problem for an indefinite amount of time, and we just see pouring more and more of this money down the drain. It's like putting oil right into the drain, and all the effects that would have. So thank you very much for the additional time.
Yeah, to the response of Chair Madrigal and his concerns, I definitely, you know, see what the points that are being brought up, because, I mean, the environment right now in downtown is you know, due to the homelessness, but I think that's part of the investment of these funds is to help address some of that. So I do see that. But a question that came up, if Mr. Rosell or Ms. Golden can answer in terms of what ties were on this funding, if, you know, Are there any implications in the future of how it was spent?
I mean, the way that Mayor Flynn framed it is correct, that it was meant as the offset of the downtown, and there were not strings per se, if you can only be a capital improvement or a program improvement. There has not been that. There has been a lot of discussion, both from the community and from the council, of what is the best way to spend it and what is the longest play. But legally, in the money and the settlement that was there, there were not a list of these are approved type of projects and these are not. It wasn't even defined in the boundary itself of what was downtown. That wasn't tied directly to the redevelopment area, nor was it tied to the zoning. It was to the downtown to benefit the downtown area. And just to go on just a little bit longer, a little bit related to what is being said overall, but not your direct question. And the idea of coming from the 50-foot level, I mean, council, we did come to council in 2017, of December of 2017, with 14 recommendations.
2016.
January 31st of 2017, we came with a capital improvement project with 14 projects that were listed and that was at the tune of $1.4 million to program that out. And very similar to the discussion that we're having today, we were told, no, these aren't the right way to spend them. What's the long-term plan? What's the long-term plan? And staff has worked and got a lot more consensus this time around from the community, specifically the PBID, but also working with community planning group and others of, without stabilizing the environment, you're not going to get that future investment. And that really is the long-term plan that we're looking at, is right now, to what Councilman Madrigal said, of people don't feel safe. If you don't have people that feel safe, you're not getting the people to invest. People don't want to invest either in their own building, they're either leaving, or we're not getting new investment to come in. And it is that revenue stream of that coming in that helps build that, not that particular fund back up, but the taxes back up in the area to reinvest through either the PBID or through the city itself. And that's really what we were looking at from this perspective. And the conversations that we had with the PBID about this was, we need to stabilize, we need to do this and hold where we are so that people will invest and everybody's funding goes up so that can continue and move forward. And also, to a lot of what the PBID asked for, and when we did the survey in 2016 and brought it forward to the council in 2017, were some of those physical improvements, and very much what we're hearing today of, well, that could have been done by the general fund or that could be somewhere else. That's the same thing that the PBID said at the time. But to the ambassador program that Jeff hit on as well, that's normally something like in downtown Ventura that the PBID actually funds. They don't have the funding to do that either. So we're trying to, again, stabilize and help improve that, because as buildings are improved, taxes increase for everybody, for them and for us, to continue to reinvest in the downtown.
Yeah, and I do agree with these recommendations, and more so because we're also looking at this funding right now. I mean, if we had this funding, 10 years ago, or when this initially, came forward, there would be a different idea of how we could spend that money. But I think it's based on the current conditions that this is what we need to address. So I think I appreciate that input. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. I'm trying to see if I remember, but I guess I do not. Anything else? Any last comments? Mr. Lambert.
Thank you. We are looking for the committee to recommend the recommended funding sources out of this fund tonight, so we can take it to the full city council. And then if your direction is to come back for a second round of conversations for the further funding, we're certainly happy to do that, and probably the first half of 2020.
Okay. Yes.
May I speak? Or is that out of turn?
May she go ahead? Come on up.
I'm a property owner, and I don't have.
We might.
I'm a property owner. I don't have any expertise in urban planning, but I've tried to be active and see the growth of our community. The way I understand it is our zoning changed as a result of some of our development money paying for a group of people changing the codes and the zones. And as a result of that zoning change, I think what we all agreed was that it's a long-term change that would benefit everyone. And we all thought that that would be the first stage. But the second phase of that would be to bring developers in. And in just the last couple of months, we've had 4 developers come in with some significant projects, 100 units, 50-something units. We have the housing community coming in over in Meta, and we have, of course, Madison. Madison's coming in. So I wanted to first say thank you to all of you who made that zoning and code change happen, because I think that was money out of our fund well spent. But I'm talking just as a property owner. I don't have the creative imagination nor the weight or the breadth or the education of what a good idea would be. And so I was thinking, we have hired Marco. I called the city of Santa Monica. They've had some challenges like we're having with homeless. San Luis Obispo, to see if we could get possibly, well, first of all, could we not rush into approving spending all of the money until we can get some really good ideas that are of the same quality that the code was? Because we do need police. I am in the Pasadena area, and I spent the whole evening in Old Town, and they have 2 different, block by block, yellow shirts, not red, very beefy, patient-friendly ambassadors. And they have a wonderful system down there. They also have a security, and then they also have the Pasadena Police Department. And it's a wonderful environment. And they went, I don't know if you're old enough to know this, they had what we have here in downtown at one time. I'm gonna have to quit. So I'd like to come back and have a chance to bring some other people in and have a conversation with all of us and see if we can come up with some really strong ideas because the city has money and the ODMD has some money, and that keeps coming in, but this money is limited. And I was hoping personally as a property owner and not representing anyone else that we could use that $6 million at the same quality that we used for the codes and zoning. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Actually, I would like to meet Marco. I'm on the ODMD. I've yet to meet Marco. And I know he's been here a while, so. Okay. Any last comments, recommendations? Anyone's recommending anything?
Oh, move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay. We'll call for a vote since I don't think the machines are up and going.
I made the motion. It was seconded by committee member Lopez.
Okay, thank you. Chair Madrigal,
Aye.
Member Lopez,
Aye.
and Member Flynn.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Any items for future agendas? Actually, I would like to have a presentation by Emilio on Las Cortes. Okay, other than that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.